three, hit it!
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to today's Caffeine for the Soul. And today's Caffeine for the Soul comes from a conversation I was having with one of my mentors about the difference between who I am when I teach and who I am when I'm not teaching. And it's funny because I just come off a spate of teaching, and when I teach, my God, I love my experience. It's fresh. I feel alive. I feel energized. I actually got up to teach a training, and on the Thursday, I had been flat on my back, ill. And on the Friday, I was up on stage teaching, and it was like I'd never been ill a day in my life. I was so in the zone that it was remarkable. And I've known this for years. But in the old days, my solution was to try and just teach every day. And so one year I literally filled my calendar to the point where I was teaching something like 250 days of the year. And I finished the year just physically wrecked and exhausted and without a life. So I realized that wasn't really a meaningful way to do things, and that there had to be a way that it was less different between when I was in performance mode on stage and when I was off stage. And I've had the same thing talking with musicians who just love playing, but when they get off stage, their lives suck. With actors who are just totally at peace when they're on stage, but totally a mess off stage. With athletes who, when they're playing their game, boy, they couldn't be more alive. And when they come off, their lives just aren't almost worth living at times. And where I got to was I started to see, well, one of the differences between when we are all in our element, in the zone, is we're not thinking about us. We are unself-conscious. And so consequently, we're in the realm of the capital S self instead of the little s self. We're in the realm of the universal, not the personal. We're in the realm of that which is true before our individual psychologies kick in. And that's just a beautiful place to be. So I thought, okay, well, maybe the trick is just to be unself-conscious more of the time. That just because I'm off stage and could be thinking about me, because I'm not in front of a microphone and could be thinking about me, because I'm not in front of a client and could thinking about me, doesn't mean I have to think about me in those situations either. But I also noticed that while that helped, and it really did help, it didn't seem to help as much as I'd hoped it would. Because there were times where it seemed really important to think about me. And if I can't ever think about me, then what about me? Well, so when I was talking with my mentor about it, she said that it was such a simple question. She said, well, what if the zone was portable? I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, when you're in the zone, you love being there. But you think that's something that only happens when you're speaking or working with a client or recording or writing. What if it was portable? What if it was available anywhere? The athletes that you've worked with, the musicians that you've worked with, the actors that you've worked with, they all think the zone is what happens to them when they're doing their thing. They don't realize the zone is portable. And as we talked about it, I realized, despite the fact that I had noticed there was such a huge difference and had found some insight into how to be less self-conscious when I wasn't doing my thing, it didn't feel like the whole zone was portable. It just felt like I could do damage limitation. But I started to see, well, what if the zone, what we call that experience of flow, what if that's just how we're made? We're made to operate in flow. We're made to operate in responsive real time. Not planning too far ahead, not looking back into the past, but just showing up and responding to what shows up. And that anywhere that we show up and respond to what shows up, we'll find ourselves in the zone. And it doesn't matter if you're having a conversation with your partner, if you're having a conversation with someone at work, if you're in a performance type situation, or if you're just driving down the road. The more you're willing to show up and respond to what shows up, the more you'll experience yourself in the zone, and you'll start to see, oh, the zone has nothing to do with where I am, nothing to do with what I'm doing, but everything to do with how I'm doing it. And if I'm doing it from my intellect, from my plan, from my thoughts, there's a tendency to completely miss the zone. But anytime I just show up and respond to what shows up, moment by moment by moment, I find myself in the zone. And it's exactly the same zone as when I'm teaching, when I'm podcasting, when I'm writing, when I'm with a client, when an athlete is athleting, when a musician is musicking, and when you're doing whatever it is that you do, where you experience flow or the zone most often. And I just really encourage you to play with that this week. What if the zone was portable? And see what you see. Have fun, learn heaps, and happy exploring. I'll talk with you soon.